It's The Game, G-Unit's West Coast artist. The Game was in Cedar Block Blood Gang. He was Dr. Dre's artist at the beginning, and Dre had him for a while, but couldn't really figure out where to take him creatively, making songs. The perception was that The Game, who was a great lyricist and a great rapper, but couldn't make great songs. Although signed to Dre, The Game was still in the streets and was shot 5 times in 2001, and actually ended up being in a coma, which he references in one of his songs, Dreams. But there was a big buzz for The Game before he came out, as there hadn't been a big West Coast artist really since the Death Row days in the mid-90s. And as much as he was a West Coast artist, he did have an East Coast flow when he rapped. But what happened was, The Game eventually joined G-Unit as a group. If you paid attention in early G-Unit videos, you could see him in many of them. He was in the Club video, he was in Young Buck's Stomp video, and in the G-Unit I Want to Get to Know You video. All these cameos came before his own debut album came out. His debut album, The Documentary, came out January 18, 2005. It was a big success and sold 5 million albums. It had singles such as How We Do featuring 50 Cent, Hate It or Love It featuring 50 Cent, Dreams, Put You on the Game. While Game was having success with his debut album, there was friction in the G-Unit camp, really with just The Game and 50 Cent. Game was kind of taking 50 Cent's tactics of starting random beefs with rappers. He would have a few lines for Jay-Z, a few lines for Memphis Bleak, to name a few, but would weirdly kind of step back and say nah, he wasn't dissing him when the rapper was confronted in interviews. But one day he was performing and he dissed Jay-Z, and 50 didn't like it because he felt like Jay-Z could have ended Game's whole career just like that. So stuff like that was making a bit of friction between him and 50. I think also 50 wasn't happy that Game's album was put out before his, when 50 was ready. And 50 actually gave Game quite a few of his songs to help his record, because Game wasn't a strong songwriter like 50 was. In addition to that, The Game refused to diss some of 50's foes like Fat Joe and Jadakiss, which definitely did not go down well with 50. Well, it all came down to a head at the radio station when 50 was on the radio and he announced that The Game would no longer be in G-Unit. This caused The Game to bring an entourage to the radio station, where there was a confrontation and eventually guns were drawn. Someone from The Game's camp was shot. Though the person survived, this was the start of a long-winded beef that carries on to this day. Game went on to release a flurry of diss songs and mixtapes towards G-Unit, the most classic being 300 Bars, which in hip-hop I don't think we had ever seen anyone rap or hold 300 bars in one song. It was epic. The Game was so relentless, people say that he destroyed G-Unit fully on his own. I don't believe that. I think G-Unit had lost a bit of its stardust, particularly with the beef with the Locks as well. But Game definitely had a massive part because Game was very popular at that time. When it came to The Game coming out of his second album, it was all eyes was on him. A lot of people felt like Game couldn't make another album because 50 was really heavily involved in his first album. He wrote half the choruses on the album, and the ones that he didn't, R&B singers were on it. But on November 14, 2006, The Game released his sophomore album, The Doctor's Advocate. It had some of the hottest producers such as Scott Storch, Swiss Beats, will.i.am, and Kanye West on production. He had the epic song It's Okay, One Blood, Let's Ride, and Wouldn't Get Far featuring Kanye. For a lot of people, this is his best album, even better than the first one. It was a success. It had more of a West Coast sound, and it proved that Game could survive without 50 Cent writing his choruses. After The Doctor's Advocate, Game also released LAX in 2008, the Red Album in 2011, Jesus Piece in 2012, which I felt was a great album, the Documentary 2 in 2015, Documentary 2.5 in 2015 as well, 1992, 2016, Born to Rap 2019, and his latest album, Dramatic Heart vs. Mind, November 2022. Generally, his sales dropped quite dramatically from the first album, but everybody generally agrees that Game can definitely rap, but he just hasn't reached the heights of those G-Unit days. Although Game had parted ways from 50 Cent, he did carry on a lot of 50's tactics, such as starting up random beefs, even taking it to another level. The Game has had beefs with so many rappers, you kind of lose track on who he's been beefing with. He's had problems with Dirk, Razcast, Jay-Z, Meek Mill, Young Thug. It's kind of crazy. A lot of times he's even starting these beefs on behalf of other rappers that don't need the backing, like the Young Thug thing when he was trying to copy Lil Wayne's Carter albums with the Barter albums, or Dirk when he was having problems with Tiger. Other controversies the Game's been involved in when he had a dating show in 2015 called He Got Game, where the winner, Priscilla, sued him, was meant to go on a date with Game, showed up to the venue, and there was no film crew, it's just Game, and apparently he was intoxicated and sexually assaulted her. He eventually was found guilty and was ordered to pay $7 million to her in a judgment. Game refused to pay the amount. The judge responded in 2020 by giving Priscilla ownership of Game's record label, so she would actually receive the royalties to any albums that he was going to put out at that point. Game obviously then decided to retire from hip-hop, but he eventually did come out with another album. Game has always been quite a complex character. Even with his last album, he put out a diss to Eminem. He'd already been on Drink Champ saying that Eminem wasn't as good as him, but we all saw through it that he was just trying to create a buzz for his album. The song called The Black Slim Shady came out, and it really tanked. Possibly one of the worst diss songs in hip-hop history, especially with all the talk behind it. And I think why people felt that was real disappointment, because Game can actually rap, so people maybe was even expecting something that was quite decent. But what is the Game's legacy? He's a rapper that really does divide opinions. From fighting 40 Glock to crying that hip-hop wasn't the same when he first came out as he expected it, to destroying G-Unit. Jimmy Iovine described it as breaking up the Beatles, which is a heck of a comparison. But Game's definitely known for his name dropping, beefing, and really clout chasing like a youngster when he's in his 40s. But overall, he's had a good career. Maybe just didn't maximize his potential. It's 50, aka Ferrari F50. Break it down. It's 50 Cent, G-Unit's leader. Grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York. 50 had it tough growing up. He lost his mother young and started selling drugs very young at the age of 12. 50 Cent didn't actually get into music properly until he actually had his son. Then he felt like he had a reason to leave the streets behind. He started rapping and eventually got with Run DMC legend Jam Master Jay. It was here when 50 would meet Ja Rule, who's from Hollis, Queens. At this point, 50 was making a lot of music. One of the songs he made that caught a lot of attention from his neighborhood was the Ghetto Quran, which was basically bigging up the legendary Queens gangsters, the Supreme Team. Although this was seen as a positive song, giving love to his borough and where he's from, there was word that members of the Supreme Team were not happy with 50 naming individuals' names and what they were known for in the Supreme Team. This allegedly is the reason why 50 Cent was shot 9 times in the year 2000. By this point, Ja Rule and 50 had already fallen out, and 50 had released songs dissing Ja Rule even before the shooting. After 50 had recovered from the shots, he hit the mixtapes hard, releasing mixtapes with his group G-Unit. 50 was trying to get signed to a major label, but 50 was getting blackballed due to Irv Gotti being quite powerful in the music scene at the time, contacting labels not to sign 50 Cent. 50 would eventually get his breakthrough, signing to Dr. Dre and Eminem, Shady Aftermath Records. He then released his debut album Get Rich or Die Trying, which had huge success, selling over 12 million albums worldwide. It was singles such as the classic In the Club, 21 Questions, If I Can't, Many Men, and PIMP. 50's sophomore album, The Massacre, didn't disappoint either, selling 1 million copies in the first week and ended up selling over 10 million again, with big singles like Candy Shop, Just a Little Bit, Disco Inferno, and Out of Control remix. Besides all the mixtapes as well that he kept releasing even when he was on, 50's other albums were 2007's Curtis album, which had big songs like I Get Money, Ayo Technology, Amusement Park, and Straight to the Bank. In 2009 he released Before I Self-Destruct, and the last album was Animal Ambition, released in 2014. But by this point, his popularity in the music game had diminished quite significantly. 50 also had G-Unit Records with artists such as Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo, and Young Buck. He signed other known artists such as Mobb Deep, MOP, and obviously we know about The Game, but they didn't quite work out as planned. But in terms of G-Unit as a record label, besides signing Kid in the later years, G-Unit as a label kind of went cold. In terms of beefs, 50 Cent hasn't been shy of those, that's for sure. His infamous beef with Ja Rule started way back in the streets of Queens, New York. According to 50, Ja Rule was robbed and 50 knew the individual that robbed him. Ja Rule then saw 50 in a club with the guy that robbed him, and 50 says that's when the beef really started, because he felt like 50 shouldn't be with this guy when him and Ja Rule are okay. Because don't forget, 50 Cent and Ja Rule were both signed to Jam Master Jay at this time, so 50 and Ja were somewhat cool. But according to Ja Rule, this is not how the beef started. There's many theories for this one. Ja Rule says that 50 was just simply jealous of him as he was already signed and was making big moves in the music industry. Ja Rule also said that 50 asked to do a song with Ja Rule, and Ja never really got back to 50 about it, so that kind of added to 50's fuel to start dissing him. And 50 and Ja Rule also had an altercation in Atlanta where they actually got into a physical altercation. It's not clear who actually was the winner in that actual fight though. And there's another theory that 50 was somewhat a big drug dealer in Queens, wasn't happy that Supreme Team leader Kenneth McGriff was supporting Ja Rule instead of supporting 50. 50 felt like he's the one in the streets being gangster, while Preem was supporting Ja Rule, who really wasn't seen as a street guy. That beef ended up going into diss songs, 50 dissing Ja Rule and his crew Murder Inc., and then Ja Rule and his crew dissing 50 as well. It even ended up in another altercation in the Hit Factory where 50 needed a couple stitches. The beef got commercial when 50 signed to Dr. Dre and Eminem, where he released the song Back Down, which was a scathing diss to Ja Rule. By this point, 50's momentum and the G Unit was too much for Ja. With the flurry of disses, Eminem joined Busta Rhymes. Ja Rule's career ended up a bit suffering and he went basically into hip-hop obscurity. To this day, that beef continues with 50 jabbing and Ja responding on social media. In 2005, 50 laid aim at Jadakiss and Fat Joe for literally featuring on Ja Rule's song New York. 50 ended up dissing them on Piggy Bank on his second album Massacre, and these songs were exchanged as with Jadakiss coming on top when the Locks were dissing the whole of 50 Cent and G Unit. Fat Joe and 50's beef got a bit more serious. Joe was very big on the streets, and that was all squashed when 50's manager Chris Lighty died and they got together for a peace treaty. 50's beef with the Game was well publicized as well. This actually started really from the Game really wanted to be his own man and really doing things out of line, which didn't sit well with 50. 50 eventually kicked the Game out of G Unit, and Game went on a long tirade dissing G Unit and 50 Cent, starting the whole GU Not movement. The other main beef that 50 had, but that one all went into the legal route, 50 losing a lawsuit to Rick Ross. Other foes of 50 involves Jay-Z in his early days. He's always digging at Diddy, Shine, Cameron, even Nas. And his own camp isn't immune to it. Young Buck has really felt the wrath of 50 in recent years. Even Yayo fell out with 50 at one point. Away from music, he did a movie in 2005 based on his life called Get Rich or Die Trying. He had a big vitamin water deal in 2007 and made $100 million from there, which changed the game of how hip-hop stars made deals outside of music, requiring equity rather than just a quick check. But 50's main hustle now is film and TV. He's an actor and executive produces a lot of shows. Power is probably the most popular one, which has had multiple spin-offs. He's got the BMF series as well, which is based on Big Meech, the Detroit drug dealer. The other one was called For Life, based on a true story about an inmate that was wrongly accused and then got a law degree and started helping other inmates beat their cases. His music career is pretty much done for now. He's teased us with a few features and mixtapes over the years, and his recent feature on Nas's Magic 2 album, which didn't get the best reviews, to be honest with you. He's moved more into being an entrepreneur and a TV producer.